Often, the best way to uncover the truth about a chaotic situation is to turn down the noise and let the person at the centre of it talk for themselves.
And we were looking around, and we actually opened Philomena's door, and that's when we noticed the window was broken. So I immediately thought, oh my God, there's been a break-in.
Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And this one is going to divide the audience 50-50 because it's a very divisive case. I'm looking at Amanda Knox. She's been convicted and acquitted of the murder of her housemate, Meredith Kercher. And most people agree with one of those decisions, so I'm excited to share this with you. So let's dial down the noise and let's listen to Amanda. We're going to study her talking about the day she discovered that Meredith had been killed. And we're going to look at her words to see if she's got markers of telling the truth, being deceptive, or hiding something, and we'll just study the words. So unlike anything else that you've seen on this story, forget about what you know, forget about what you think you know, what rumours you've heard, and even how Amanda Knox acts. Put that to all one side and actively listen to what she says. I'm not going on until I talk about the victim, because unlike almost every other true crime case, this story has become known for the accused and the acquitted person, and the victim has been somewhat forgotten. Whatever else we discover, it's a fact that Meredith Kercher was murdered in 2007, aged just 21. She was hundreds of miles from her family and close friends at the time. Her whole life was in front of her, and that future was brutally taken away from her. So let's listen to Amanda Knox. Some context for you. This interview is from 2014, so that is 7 years after the Meredith was murdered. I'm not sure if this is an interview or not. She just talks non-stop for 20 minutes. We're going to look at 10 minutes worth of it. Don't know if there was a question asked. It's certainly not a presentation. She's looking someone in the eye. She doesn't appear to be looking at a script. But let's listen to what Amanda Knox has to say.
I remember thinking, I don't know what to think, because when I went back to my apartment after the house, but like we had the upper floor, so it was our apartment, and I found the front door open, and then progressively found other things like spots of blood in the bathroom and feces in the other bathroom. I remember thinking, I don't know what to make of this. No one was home, which was also like a first. I knew that one of my roommates, Philomena, was at a party the previous night, so it was wherever she was. And my other roommate, Laura, I didn't know that she was on business in Rome, but she was on business in Rome, and actually when I called Philomena, she confirmed that to me. And I didn't know where Meredith would be. But granted, she also has a whole bunch of English friends, and so I had seen her the evening before, or the afternoon before, going out to meet them. And so I thought, well, maybe she's out with them, or maybe she's still asleep. When I first went in, it was very strange to me. And I didn't know what to think because, yes, the front door was open, but everything looked normal. Everything that I saw just in walking in the front door, going to my bedroom, and going to the bathroom, the various bathrooms, everything looked completely normal. So I did not think there's been a break-in.
So here we have the story starting with Amanda Knox saying, I remember thinking, I don't know what to think because when I went back to my apartment after the house, but like we had the upper floor, so it was our apartment, and I found the door open, First thing I've got here is that she's telling us, I remember thinking something. Now, this is an indication that we might not be getting the full story. What Amanda might be doing here is qualifying that I'm only going to tell you the things that I remember. And it's very hard to look inside someone's mind and see what they do remember and what they don't remember. What she's telling us, though, and flagging very directly with her first words, is she's going to tell us what she remembers. So that might mean there are things not appearing in this version of events that she either realistically doesn't remember Or it could be that she is conveniently choosing not to remember certain things. Very cerebral all the way through this. She is not just going to tell us what happened, just the actions that were happening, but she's going to let us in on her alleged thought process at the time. So it's, I remember thinking, I don't know what to think. So double thinking going on there, quite complex, but she is constantly not just going to tell us what has happened, but she's going to tell us what it is that she was thinking at the time. Why? Why is it important for her not just to say the sequence of events, but also what was going on in her mind? I noticed she refers to it as my apartment. I went back to my apartment after the house. Just maybe an interesting guide into her character there, because this was a house share, this was a flat share with 3 other women, but she's referred to it there as my apartment, not our apartment. So potentially this is a flag of someone quite self-centered, very much at the center of their world and the most important thing in their world. Anyway, she says she went back to my apartment, so that's an indication she's been there before. Now, nothing guilty about that. Obviously, it was her apartment, so she's been there before and she's now going back to it. But that going back to it does infer that she's thinking, and it's in her head, that she left it at some point. All of this, not saying she's guilty, not saying she's hiding something. What I am saying is, let's just look at the words she uses to see what her reality is. She says, we had the upper floor, so it was our apartment, and I found the front door open. I found, so this is discovering, so she's wanting us to know not just the front door was open, but she found the front door open. She wants us to know that she's discovering these things. Now, we got to ask ourselves as we go through this, was she discovering things, or is she trying to convince us that she was discovering these things, like this front door open? And also, just look, it's slightly removed there. It's passive. The front door was open. She's not blaming this on any person. She's not saying someone had left the front door open. One of my housemates had left the front door open. She's not attributing this thing that she's found to a person. It's very passive. It was just the front door was open. And then she progressively found other things like spots of blood in the bathroom and feces in the other bathroom. Interesting there, progressively finding things, and this goes along again with found the front door open. She is telling us very much that she was discovering these things for the first time. It's very important to her, in her words, to use words like found to get this across to us. This could be because that is what happened. This is her describing that she discovered these things progressively, by the way, step by step. Or could it be that she wants us to believe that these things were found for the first time? She says she found other things like spots of blood in the bathroom, feces in the other bathroom. Not things, so she doesn't say the specifics of what she found. She does give us some specifics, but other things like, was there some other things that she found? It's a question we've got from that. Again, strange way of referring to the rooms, because she found spots of blood in the bathroom, so that suggests one bathroom, one main bathroom, and feces in the other bathroom. So what have we got going on there? I don't know. Potentially, it's her. It is her bathroom. That's why she refers to it as the bathroom, and the other one was used by the other people in the house, so it's the other bathroom. But she really has this concept of a bathroom that is the bathroom. Maybe it's the main bathroom of the house and there's an ensuite or something that's slightly smaller. That is the other bathroom. But she does have this concept of 2 very different bathrooms in her head. Just want to talk about her tense here. She's talking in that past tense. I went back. I found the front door open and found other things. She's talking in the past tense, and that's a reassuring factor, because that's what we would expect when someone is talking about events in the past, like this is 7 years ago to Amanda. Then what we've got going on here is talking in the past tense, exactly what we would expect when someone is relaying past events in the present tense. Maybe saying, I am going back to my front door. I'm finding the front door open. I'm finding other things. If they were talking in the present tense, we would be more suspicious of that, because people making things up can slip sometimes into the present tense, even though they are discussing past events. But here she's bang on in the past tense. She says, I remember thinking, I don't know what to make of this. So we once again have this flag for her that she is only telling us what she remembers. And interestingly, what she's telling us that she remembers is her thinking. So she doesn't say, I remember finding the front door open. I remember finding feces in the bathroom. I remember finding blood in the bathroom. She's talking to us about her thinking that she remembers. So I remember thinking, I don't know what to make of this. No one was at home, which was also like a first. Now, this is something to keep with us as we go through these words. No one was at home, which is also like a first. Now, that word also intrigues me there. Because she hasn't described any other first there to us, but also like a first is suggesting that there were some other firsts going on that she hasn't told us about. Why she said also? Also, how does she know that no one was at home? Because right now she's gone in her telling of the story anyway, she's gone into the house, the open front door, and we have the 2 bathrooms that she's been into. But she's determined from that, as far as we can see, no one was at home. How did she know at that point no one was at home? She then carries on and says, I knew that one of my roommates, Philomena, was at a party the previous night. So it was wherever she was. And my other roommate, Laura, I didn't know that she was on business in Rome, but she was in business with Rome. And actually, when I called Philomena, she confirmed that to me. This is not smooth. This is really not smooth at all. It's very lumpy. It's very jumpy. Now, this is just one sample of it. But when someone's not smooth, that's potentially because it's not their actual experience. They are constructing things. They are not talking from things they've experienced or felt. And their language can get a little bit smooth while they try and find the authentic words to get the concept across. I'm not saying that's what's happening here right now. What I am doing is flagging up to you that this is not smooth. Also, she talks about the flatmates. So there's Philomena and then there's the other roommate, Laura. That suggests that is the entirety of the flatmates. There is Meredith as well, but she doesn't seem to come into this not one of my other flatmates, Laura. It's just my other roommate, Laura. Also, a bit of a focus on the previous night. So Philomena is not there. I presume she was at a party. Philomena was at a party the previous night. Now, that doesn't explain why Philomena is not there at the time. It might be that it could be Philomena was at a party the previous night. I presumed she hadn't come home, would be the way of saying that. But there is a real focus on the previous night. Now we come on to Meredith. She says, and I didn't know where Meredith would be, but granted, she also has a bunch of English friends. So this is the first time that she has mentioned Meredith. She's mentioned them in order: Philomena, Laura, Philomena again, then Laura again, and finally, at the end of things, Meredith comes up. The order we list things in can often be revealing. It can show our priority as the person that we talk about first, or the subject we talk about first, or the object we talk about first, and things then go down in priority as we list them out. So here we have had Philomena, Laura, Philomena again, Laura again, and finally Meredith. She carries on, and so I had seen her the evening before, or the afternoon before, going out to meet them. And so I thought, well, maybe she's out with them. We have 2 uses of and so there. It's what I call and so storytelling, which is not just events, event 1, event 2, event 3, event 4, and so on. What we've got is and so, which is something happened and so something else happened. So explaining the reasons for events, or the reasons for thinking, or the reasons that things happened, that is flagged up by and so. In general, non-stressful situations where people are not worried about being called out or actually having to tell a lie or so on, they don't really use this and so construct. They just tell events in sequential order. But here she's explaining why things happened. She also has a whole bunch of English friends, and so I had seen her the evening before, or the afternoon before, going out to meet them, and so I thought, well, maybe she's out with them. Very interesting. I hope you noticed it. The correction. She says, I'm talking about Meredith, I had seen her the evening before, or the afternoon before. when someone corrects themselves, I tend to go, what's the first thing that they said? Because that's what they want stricken from the record, if you like. That's what they want to correct. They don't want that to get across. And that there is her saying that she had seen Meredith the evening before. And this is when events, the murder or whatever happened, seems to have happened was the evening or the night before. But she doesn't want that to be out there. She wants to change the record. And so when she says, I had seen her the evening before, she corrects that record and says, or the afternoon before. And by the way, you'll see it's not a total correction because it's the evening or the afternoon. Therefore, it could be both. She's not entirely sure or clear in her wording there. It's not, I'd seen her the evening before. Oh, no, not the evening before. I saw her the afternoon before, which would be very definite. I had seen her the evening before or the afternoon before. And she was going out to meet them. That's the English friends. And so I thought, well, maybe she's out with them, or maybe she's still asleep. When I first went in, it was very strange to me. Now, this line that interests me there is maybe she's out with them, or maybe she's still asleep. But not 30 seconds ago, Amanda had said no one was at home, which was also like a first. There's a contradiction there. Did she think no one was at home, or did she think Meredith was still asleep? We don't know. And then she says, when I first went in, it was very strange to me. Now, she's already gone in because she talked about this door that was unlocked. So she's having to jump back in time here to tell her story, which is that she went in, she was been to all these bathrooms, and then all of a sudden she's accounting for the roommates that she has. She's thinking about where is Meredith? She's the one person, I don't know where she is. And then she goes back to talking about when I first went in. So she's jumped back in time. Now, often when a liar is telling a story, lying is a hideously complex thing to do. You have to make up what happened. You have to make up your lie. And also you have to make sure the lie fits with facts as they are known in the truthful world. And quite often a liar will have to jump back in time in their story to make the next thing they say, or to make the last thing they say make a bit of sense. They have to jump backwards in time to say something happened so that the next thing they say, or the thing they've just said, makes a bit of sense. Again, I'm not saying that's what's happening here. What I am saying is this is a red flag that something funny is going on in this story. So she is jumping back in time so that what she says makes sense. And then she says, it was very strange to me. So in all this talking, all of a sudden she's telling us that it was very strange to me. Once more, she's taking us into her thinking. It's not just the events, but she's telling us what was going on inside her head. And I want you to remember that. It was very strange to me. She says, and I didn't know what to think because yes, the front door was open, but everything looked normal. Well, you've just said that it was a bit strange to you. In fact, what you have told us about is that there were blood in the bathroom, feces in the other bathroom, an empty house, which was a first. But then you're saying everything looked normal. The concept might be things were a bit strange. The front door was open, no one was in the house, everything looked normal, but it was there were these strange things there, but everything didn't look normal. There was this blood, there was this feces, this empty house where you could not see anything, and yet everything looked normal. We've got some contradictions going on. Everything that I saw just walking in the front door, going to my bedroom and going to the bathroom, to various bathrooms, everything looked completely normal. Well, we've covered off why. You've already said it didn't. So I did not think there had been a break-in. Once again, the number of bathrooms seems really sensitive to her. And going to the bathroom, the various bathrooms, she's now talking about multiple bathrooms that she has been in. You'll notice as well she's introduced the concept that she went to her bedroom. She didn't tell us that before. The bedroom has been brought in now, so we've got a concept here. I think she is skipping over events that happened. Why is she doing that? Is she trying to hide something? Is she just trying to talk quickly? Or are things all fuzzy in her head? Well, maybe not, because she does seem to know these things happen, but we've got another bit of hidden, skipped over things that have to come out later. And this concept of lots of bathrooms. She said, everything looked completely normal, so I did not think there's been a break-in. I did not think there's been a break-in. Feels a little bit defensive. Has an accusation been thrown at her that, you walked in and you didn't think there'd been a break-in despite the door being open and there's blood in the feces? How could you not think there'd been a break-in? What she's doing here is saying everything looked completely normal, even though I've told you it didn't, but everything looked completely normal, so I did not think there's been a break-in. Also, it's a statement in the negative. She doesn't tell us what she thinks did happen. She's just, again, letting us in on her thought process. I did not think there's been a break-in. Are you ready for some more from Amanda Knox?
I just thought, okay, well, the door doesn't work very well, so maybe someone didn't close it all the way. Mm-hmm. And then once I saw the blood in the bathroom, and the feces in the toilet, I thought, okay, well, that's really weird. First of all, the blood in the bathroom, like, it wasn't a lot, so I didn't assume that someone had been murdered. I assumed that either someone kind of hurt themselves or there was menstrual issues, and they hadn't been cleaned up. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe somebody ran out really quickly and is coming back. Maybe someone went downstairs into the apartment below. I didn't know. But when I saw the feces in the toilet, it actually creeped me out. Because that was just very unusual. And so I left feeling creeped out. I locked the door and I left and I went back to Raphael's and I kept brooding over it. He was in the bathroom and brooding over it. I had brought a mop from my place because there was water on the floor in the kitchen. His pipe had gone loose. And so I was doing that. I was mopping that up. And immediately after he got out of the shower, I was like, tell me if I'm crazy, Raphael. Like, what do I do about this? And he immediately was alarmed and was like, no, you have to call your roommates, figure out what happened. Something happened. And so I tried to call Meredith. Her phone didn't answer. I tried to call Philomena. I tried to call Laura and her phone didn't answer. Then I called Philomena finally. And she was very alarmed by it. She said that she hadn't been home that night, she had been out at the party, and that I should go and check it out. And so I was like, okay, but I'm gonna go with Raphael. And so we were gathering ourselves and we went back to my apartment. And I was already feeling very creeped out. I was like clutching to Raphael.
By the way, I'm not a body language expert, but if you've got any comments on that, please put them in the comments, because I think there are some very interesting things going on there as Amanda Knox talks. She started that section by saying, I just thought, okay, well, the door doesn't work very well. We've got the word just there. If you're a regular, then you will know the word just puts me on red alert for deception. It's often an attempt to minimize something or to put the focus on something, on only one thing and away from other things. And here, I think that's what it is. This was my only thought, was the door doesn't work very well. Again, she's letting us in on her thought processes. I just thought, okay, well, the door doesn't work very well. The door doesn't work very well, so maybe someone didn't close it all the way. And then once I saw the blood in the bathroom and the feces in the toilet, I thought, okay, well, that's really weird. She's gone back in time again, so she's taking us back again in this story to spotting the blood again and seeing the feces again in the bathroom and in the toilet. So she's jumping around events. They're not linear at all. She is going back and forward in the timeline here. Very, very choppy. As she says she saw the feces in the toilet, I thought, okay, well, that's really weird. So when she saw the feces in the toilet, she thought, and she's letting us know her thought process again, well, that's really weird. But hang about, was it weird or was it normal? Because you said everything looks normal earlier. But no, all of a sudden, we've got you admitting that this was all really weird. So we've got some contradictions going on there, especially around her thought processes. She's very keen to let us know what she was thinking. However, they don't add up. They do not match. I thought, okay, well, that's really weird. First of all, the blood in the bathroom, like, it wasn't a lot, so I didn't assume that someone had been murdered. So we have this negative again. I didn't assume that someone had been murdered. Again, is this defensive here, that it was not a lot of blood in the bathroom, so I didn't assume someone had been murdered. By the way, very interesting that she says, I didn't assume that Meredith had been murdered, or even something closer like my roommate had been murdered, even just someone in the house had been murdered. It's just someone. I didn't assume that someone had been murdered. Now, the fact she hasn't gone to Meredith in the timeline there, Meredith would make as much sense as anyone else at that time. Maybe that is a little bit reassuring to us. But however, this was her flatmate. This was someone that she was apparently friends with, and she's just minimized it down to someone. However, on the reassuring sign, she talks about murder here. I didn't assume that someone had been murdered. And very often, guilty people with guilty knowledge will downplay the severity, avoid the real accusations and the strong accusations and downplay it. So she may have downplayed that if she was downplaying it and said, I didn't assume someone had been attacked or I didn't assume something had happened to someone. But really, she goes very strongly there and uses the word murdered, a reassuring fact. She says, I assumed that either someone kind of hurt themselves or there was a menstrual issue, and I thought that they hadn't cleaned up. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe somebody ran out really quickly and is coming back. Maybe someone went downstairs to the apartment below. I don't know. I didn't know. But when I saw the feces in the toilet, it actually creeped me out. Lot of talk here of bodily functions or excretions, menstrual issues and feces, and she really focuses in on those two things, this sense of stuff coming out of a body, menstrual issues and feces. And also, if those are things that need to be or considered, dirty or extraneous, then she talks about cleaning them up. And we will see all the way through this that cleanliness and uncleanliness have become very, very important themes and concepts in the way Amanda tells the story. So before we see more of them, let's talk about cleanliness and uncleanliness in statements. Now, sometimes liars will talk about dirt and the lack of hygiene when they are lying. Psychologists think this is maybe because they feel grubby and grimy because they are lying. They feel like lying is not a socially acceptable thing to do. It's a high risk thing to do. It makes people sweat, which is another thing around dirt. So potentially that is why that happens, that liars will talk about dirt, lack of hygiene when they are lying. However, watch out for how Amanda refers to the concept of clean and unclean. She doesn't really talk about herself being clean or unclean. It's things around her that are unclean or very clean. So when you look at this issue around cleanliness and uncleanliness, which comes up time and time again, as we've seen and as we've listened to her and we'll study as we go forward, just look at how she refers to the concept of clean and unclean, and what she talks about being clean and unclean is very, very rarely herself. So she talks about, once more, there was menstrual issues and she saw feces in the toilet. Once more, no person attached to this. Very much like the front door, she is not attaching people to these things. She's not saying one of my flatmates had menstrual issues, someone who came over had left the feces in the toilet. She's not attaching a person to these things at all. They are kind of inanimate objects, things that didn't really happen from another person. And she says, when she saw the feces in the toilet, it actually creeped me out. So another sign that things were not normal. Despite her saying everything looked normal, she looked, and she saw feces in the toilet, and it creeped her out. And she has to tell us, by the way, it actually creeped me out. One of those ly words. They don't change the meaning of a sentence. They don't change the content. She could have just said, it creeped me out. She didn't have to say, it actually creeped me out. If you said, it creeped me out, that's believable. We know what you're talking about. We know you got creeped out. But actually, are you trying to convince us that you were creeped out at that point? Amanda goes on, just because that was just very unusual. So again, we've got this concept that things are very unusual, even though she said everything looked normal. And it's just very unusual. There's my word, just again. Minimizing and putting the focus on one thing. She says, and so I left feeling creeped out. I locked the door and I left, and I went back to Raphael's and I kept brooding over it. He was in the bathroom and brooding over it. I had brought a mop from my place because there was water on the floor in the kitchen. His pipe had gone loose. And so I was doing that. I was mopping up. More and so storytelling there. I hope you could see. And so I left feeling creeped out. His pipe had gone. And so I was doing that. I was mopping up. She's telling us the reasons that happened. She tells us she locked the door. This is going to become important later on. So I locked the door. Interesting, this word brooding. She talks about that I kept brooding over it. So that's me, Amanda. I kept brooding over it. She then says something quite strange. I think it's a misspeak. She says, talking about Raphael, he was in the bathroom and brooding over it. I don't think he was brooding over it in the bathroom. I think it's more like he was in the bathroom, so that gave me, Amanda, more time to be brooding over it. But brooding is not really when you've been creeped out, then is brooding the right word to use? I'm not entirely sure, but she uses it twice, brooding over what happened. She says there, I had brought a mop from my place because there was water on the floor in his kitchen. We've gone back in time again to make the fact that she was mopping the floor make sense. She has to go right back into her apartment where she was being creeped out by all this stuff, to tell us that at some point, which she didn't tell us where in the first telling of the story, she had brought a mop from her place. So she, in things that she hasn't mentioned, she went to wherever the mop was stored and picked that up and brought it over to Raphael's to help with this water leak there. Just another example of this jump back in time to make what she has to say now make sense. We've got all sorts of things, again, about cleaning. He was in the bathroom, so therefore that's where bodily functions happen. It's also where we clean up. She brought a mop, a cleaning implement from my place, because there was water on the floor in the kitchen. So again, there's some dirt going around or something that needs cleaned up. I was mopping that up, therefore she was cleaning up again. And he was in the shower. He was cleaning up. So we've got lots of times this concept of things being dirty and things needing cleaned up and implements needed to clean it up. This concept of cleanliness and things needing cleaned up and uncleanliness all coming through again. She tells us that immediately after he got out the shower, she was like, "Tell me if I'm crazy, Raphael." That word immediately is not needed in that sentence. She could have said, after he got out of the shower, I was, "Tell me I'm crazy, Raphael." Tell me if I'm crazy, Raphael. Why did she feel the need to tell us it was immediate? Why did she want to show us how fast she was moving? Again, do you do something immediately when you've been brooding over it? If you've been brooding over it, are you turning it over in your mind and thinking, should I do something? Should I not do something? But the brooding has led to her saying immediately after he got out the shower. That suggests more a sense of urgency, a sense of panicking about it or something like that. The two things don't really come together, don't make sense. She said, "Tell me if I'm crazy, Raphael. Like, what do I do about this? What do I do about this? This. What's this?" She doesn't tell us what this is. This is a singular concept, whereas she's mentioned lots of different things that are a little bit strange around the house. She's boiled it all down, certainly in her head, to this. Now, I did say at the beginning, throw out everything you know, everything you think you know, but I've got something that I just cannot help here. She talks about Raphael getting out the shower at his house. What about her shower? Because as far as I understand, and please let me know in the comments if I'm right or I'm wrong, Amanda, the reason that she went back to her house from Raphael's was to have a shower. And yet she did not recount that at all in this telling of the story. She did not mention the shower at all. She didn't mention anything that a shower involves. So I'm guessing she had a shower. She would have gone to her room to undress, or maybe she undressed in the bathroom. There are other things involved when we shower, which is things like cosmetics, toiletries, teeth brushing, drying, hair drying, whatever, all the things that go on around a shower. And she getting dressed again at the end, she didn't mention any of that. So she didn't just miss out the concept of shower. Incidentally, that would be another unclean concept. She didn't take the chance to mention that. She talks about his shower. For me, but tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, she did not mention the shower that she took when she returned back to the house that she shared with Meredith and two other people. Why miss that out? All I can say is, we know this is an edited version of events. We are not now hearing everything that she did. Or maybe we are. Maybe there was no shower. Maybe the shower has been made up. Maybe the shower didn't actually happen because she doesn't mention it. But whatever happens, something somewhere is not adding up. She continues, and he immediately was alarmed. So we have that word immediately again. It's really important to her to use this word immediately to show us how fast things were going, how urgent things were with them. at odds with, I was a bit creeped out. Everything looked normal. I was brooding over it. Now they are moving immediately. And he was immediately alarmed and was like, no, you have to call your roommates. Figure out what happened. Something happened. Whoa. In her telling of the story there, if she had gone back and said, it's a bit strange, the front door was open, there was some blood in the bathroom and feces in the toilet, is that something? Figure out what happened? Something happened. Well, did it? Can you say that just from what is there? She said she thought someone had maybe cut themselves or there were menstrual issues. Feces in the toilet, not normal, but, was someone round the night before and whatever. The door wasn't locked. Like she said, she thought someone had gone out in a rush. So why is he saying you have to figure out what happened? Something happened. It's also in the past tense, not what's happening or what's going on, because remember, very feasible thought, as the way she describes it. Maybe someone has nicked themselves and gone out to get a plaster to put it on over the cut. And run out. Maybe gone downstairs to get help or something like that. They've run out. They've just left the door open because they're going to come back soon. And yet he has figured out what happened. Something happened. Really strange wording and all in the past tense. She says, and so I tried to call Meredith. Her phone didn't answer. I tried to call Philomena. Well, actually, I tried to call Laura and her phone didn't answer. And then I called Philomena finally. She was very alarmed by it. So let's just look at this. First of all, more time chaos. I tried to call Meredith, tried to call Philomena. No, I didn't actually call Philomena. I called Laura first, and then I called Philomena finally. So we've got, again, time chaos. The order of events doesn't quite hang together. She has to go and rearrange things to actually make them make sense in time order. Here we do have Meredith coming first in the list of flatmates. So if the first time I was a bit like, why is Meredith last? She tried to call Meredith first, Philomena, Laura, Philomena finally. So that is the order that she mentions those people in. Very interesting here, and this is something just to bear in mind. The word try always suggests failure. Tried to fix the fence, but I just couldn't, means the fence is not fixed. And here, I'm not saying there's lying going on here. I'm just saying, look at this word try. I tried to call Meredith and she says there was no answer. So that suggests failure. Tried to call Philomena. Now that suggests failure. I tried to call Laura. Her phone didn't answer. So we've got failure there. And I called Philomena finally. So there's no tried in there for Philomena. There is success in there for Philomena. Always watch out for the word tried. Does get me a bit though that she said she tried to call Philomena, which would be failure, but actually she does say she called Philomena finally and she was alarmed by it. Maybe Philomena didn't answer the first time. Just all very slight, curious wording. Again, we have this concept of not people doing things, just things doing things. Her phone didn't answer when she tried to call Meredith. Tried to call Laura, her phone didn't answer. She's not attributing the people to it. It's not, I tried to call Meredith, she didn't answer. I tried to call Laura, she didn't answer. It's the phone that didn't answer. Philomena, she was very alarmed by it. And we have twice the mention of alarms. Raphael earlier was alarmed and Philomena was alarmed. So we've gone in this telling of the story from this slightly creeping me out, it's not normal, but it is normal, it's a bit weird, into acting immediately and people being alarmed. And notice, again, Philomena was very alarmed by it, that singular thing that is going on there, not by what I told her, not by everything I said or what I'd noticed, just very alarmed by it. It goes on. She said that she hadn't been at home that night, that she'd been out at a party and that I should go and check it out. And so I thought, okay, but I'm going to go with Raphael. So she said that she hadn't been at home that night. Not, she said she wasn't at home, or she hadn't gone back home after that party, or she was still out. She hadn't been at home that night. Why was she talking like that? Or was she not talking like that? Is this showing where the focus is as Amanda talks? It's not on what's going on now, all the discovery of this creepy stuff in the phone calls, but her focus is on what happened that night. We've already had that evening mentioned earlier, and now we have that night. And so storytelling is back. And so I thought, okay, but I'm going to go with Raphael. And so we were gathering ourselves. So we've got this and so storytelling. We were gathering ourselves. Again, she's just mentioned some creepy stuff in her telling of this story. She was a bit creeped out. She was brooding over it. Gathering ourselves suggests steeling yourself to take action, sort of getting over your nerves, committing to doing it. We were gathering ourselves. The story has gone from being a bit weird and a bit strange to doing things immediately, people being alarmed and now having to gather ourselves. We were gathering ourselves and went back to my apartment. Once again, it is my apartment. And I was already feeling very creeped out. I was like clutching to Raphael. I just want to know that creeped out is she said it a lot, it's a very specific way of talking about how she feels. It's not frightened. Creeped out is not frightened. Creeped out is a bit more, creepy. Frightened is a bit more like actual having scare, actual having panic. But she talks about being creeped out all the time. And then she says, I was clutching to Raphael. We're about halfway through. We will be back with Amanda Knox shortly, and we will be listening to her talk about discovering that her housemate has been found dead. If you're enjoying this episode, let me recommend another one to you. It's about Corey Richins, grieving widow. This is someone who very likely is lying about the inspiration to write a book to help children get over the death of a loved one like a father, when now she is facing trial for killing said father. You can find that on this channel, along with loads more analysis, looking at the words that people choose to use and seeing if they're telling the truth or not. If you're enjoying this, then you can subscribe or follow this channel. That means you'll get episodes like this as soon as they drop. If you want to go even deeper, then become a member of the channel on YouTube or a subscriber on Spotify. That way, you'll get episodes like this before anyone else. Also, you'll be able to get access to exclusive episodes as well. This has taken hours to put together. It's been fascinating. I've really enjoyed analysing Amanda Knox, but it has taken hours to put together. You're getting it for out. So if you could press the like button to help this get to more people, or share with your communities, share with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated too. It takes nothing to do it. Just share it. Just press the like button. And also, I've got many questions after the first half. Do you have many questions, or have some of your questions been answered? Then why not get in touch on social media? You'll find all the links in the show notes here, or leave a comment on this platform if you can. Are you ready for some more from Amanda Knox? Let's have a listen.
And we were looking around, and we actually opened Philomena's door, and that's when we noticed the window was broken. So I immediately thought, oh my God, there's been a break-in, and I started running around. I went into the other bedroom, which was Laura's, but it was spotless. Like nothing had been touched. Her bedspread was pulled like so wonderfully clean, like a hotel. Like she was a clean person, which is why it struck me so strongly that in her bathroom, of all places, there would be feces left in the toilet. I was like, no, Laura's the clean one. So her bedroom was fine, which struck me as very odd, because it's like, if someone breaks in, like, they're not going to worry about ruffling things up. And indeed, like, Philomena's room was ruffled up. There was clothes and things toppled over and drawers pulled open. And then her room was untouched. The main room, like the kitchen and that area where there was a stereo, there was a TV, untouched. My room, which obviously was not as medicinally clean as Laura's, but like as far as I could see, untouched. And then there was Meredith's room. Her door was locked, and that was strange. She didn't normally lock her door. It had happened at various times, but it wasn't the usual thing. And so I remember even knocking on it, thinking, oh, if it's locked, then Meredith must be inside. I mean, why else? Why would she lock it's not like we were the type of house where you had to worry about people going into each other's rooms. Like, if you close your door, it's fine.
She sees so many of the concepts that we've been talking about coming through there. She talks about, we were looking around and we actually opened Philomena's door, and that's when we noticed that the window was broken. The first thing I've noticed there, she doesn't talk about going into the house there. Raphael and Amanda were gathering themselves, and then they went across. Remember, she mentioned locking the door? She doesn't mention unlocking the door. So locking the door was important to mention on her way out, but unlocking the door, entering the house, doesn't come into her telling of this story. A sense again that things are being jumped over in this version of events. She says, we were looking around and we actually opened Philomena's door. Why is the word actually being brought in there? You've gone in and you've seen that the window is broken, so we know you actually did it. So why are you telling us that you actually did it at that point? Why are you pointing out that it really happened? Is it because it didn't happen and you want to convince us that it did happen? We actually opened Philomena's door. And that's when we noticed the window was broken. Again, we've got this thing happening, not someone's broken the window, but again, it's all about the objects that is not being attributed to anyone. The window was broken. And so I immediately thought, oh my God, there's been a break-in, and we've got this word immediately again. Things are starting to happen fast, or she wants us to know that things have happened fast. She's letting us in on her thought process again. I thought there's been a break-in. So she immediately thought that. She didn't think it before, and she's telling us as soon as she found the window was broken, that's when she immediately thought, oh my God, there's been a break-in. And she says, and I started running around, and I went into the and she's a bit stumbly here, she's going back and starting again using an the other bedroom, which was Laura's. Correct me if I'm wrong, 4 women staying in this house, 4 bedrooms, but she's only talking about, again, one other person's bedroom, the other bedroom. She doesn't mention Meredith's bedroom as being like another bedroom, it's just the other bedroom, which was Laura's. Also, I've noticed here that she talks about Philomena's door. So Philomena directly owns the door, if you like, in that talking about it. Here is the bedroom comes first, and then Laura comes second. Bit of issues between her and Laura. That there's this bit of distance between her and Laura. We've seen her talking a little bit clunkily around Laura before. And here we go again with the cleanliness theme or the uncleanliness theme. Now, Laura is cleanliness. It was spotless. Her bedroom, Laura's bedroom, it was spotless. Like nothing had been touched. Her bedspread was pulled like so wonderfully clean, like a hotel. Like she was a clean person. So with all this pulled together to say Laura is a very clean, pure person. And then we have the dirt again in there. There would be feces left in the toilet. So once more, we've got this really strange talk all the time of cleanliness and dirtiness. Interesting talking about the bedspread. Touched by her bedspread, which was pulled like so wonderfully clean. Can you pull something clean? Pulled like so wonderfully tight would make sense, and that would be like a hotel when they do those bed sheets that you have to have a degree to undo before you get in bed. But no, it was pulled like so wonderfully clean. So clean is coming into her vocabulary even when it doesn't make sense. She continues, I was like, no, Laura's the clean one, so her bedroom was fine, which struck me as very odd, because it's like if someone breaks in, like they're not going to worry about ruffling things up. And indeed, like Philomena's room was ruffled up. There was clothes and things toppled over and drawers pulled open. Got this clean versus dirty thing again. Laura's the clean one, just the clean one, the singular clean one. So what she's saying explicitly there is of the 4 women in the house, Laura was the only clean one. She's the clean one. And we've got this unhygienic, we've got this dirtiness, we've got this mess again. Philomena's room was ruffled up. And then she jumps in time once more. You can see this time chaos because Laura's the clean one. Philomena's room was ruffled up. They're not going to worry about ruffling things up. And indeed, like Philomena's room was ruffled up. So she's in Laura's room telling us how spotless it is. And then she went there after running from Philomena's room with the broken window. And now she's back in Philomena's room in her telling of the story. She has to have gone back in time. There's just more time chaos here to tell us that she hadn't mentioned before that Philomena's room was ruffled up. There was clothes and things toppled over and drawers pulled open. More time chaos. Let's just look at how she described Philomena's room when she went in. She said, "We actually opened Philomena's door, and that's when we noticed the window was broken. So I immediately thought that seeing the window broken, there's been a break-in." She doesn't mention there at all when she first talks about going in Philomena's room, about the drawers being open, about the mess that was there, about the fact that it has been ruffled up, which is very strange. She's had to go back in time to make this make sense. Anyway, I was like, no, Laura's the clean one, so her bedroom is fine, which struck me as very odd. So she really wants to say how very odd everything is. When she's letting us know what's going on in her head now, this has gone away from being normal, and she's now wanting to say that everything that she's discovering is very odd. The room has been ruffled up, ruffling things up, and indeed Philomena's room was ruffled up. Now, if there's been a break-in, is ruffled the word you'll use? Ruffled sounds a little bit messy, a little bit tousled or something like that. Not ransacked, or her room was a mess, or someone had gone through her room. It's just ruffled up, clothes and things toppled over and drawers pulled open. She continues, and then her room was untouched. That will be Laura's room. I think she means there, not Philomena's room. And then her room was untouched. The main room, like the kitchen and that area where there was a stereo, there was a TV, untouched. My room, which was obviously not as medicinally clean as Laura's, but as far as I could see, untouched. So she's talking about her room now. Interested in her timelines there, that maybe it's logistics of she went to the closest rooms first, but I'm seeing that Philomena's room was ransacked or ruffled, and there was a broken window there. She didn't go to her room first. Her priority wasn't herself. No, her priority was to go to Laura's room. Now look, maybe it was closest. Then there was the kitchen in the area, and then she comes to my room. She did her room last, apparently, in talking about all this. Her room was, in her telling here, the last one she checked. That doesn't mean she's guilty. That doesn't mean bad things have happened. It's just an interesting choice. She talks about my room, which obviously was not as medicinally clean as Laura's. So we have, again, this concept of cleanliness. Now, what she's not saying is her room is dirty. She is actually saying her room is clean. It's not as medicinally clean as Laura's, but she's not saying her room is dirty. And you'll notice, as I said, look at where she's ascribing cleanliness and dirt to. It's towards objects. Sometimes those objects or those concepts are attached to people. So Laura's room is tidy. Hers is not as medicinally clean as Laura's. But I think she is saying that her room is fairly clean there. As far as she could see, it was untouched. But again, is there tension between Amanda and Laura? Because I've spotted some of this before, and that medicinally clean sounds a bit maybe sarcastic. Maybe she's trying to say Laura's a bit neurotic, or an obsessive cleaner or something like that. So I'm picking up, is there some tension between Amanda and Laura? Then there was Meredith's room, and Meredith's room was locked. And that was strange. She's telling us that was strange, that Meredith's room being locked was strange. And then she gives us all the reasons why it's not really that strange. She didn't normally lock her door. It happened at various times, but it wasn't the usual thing. So let's break that down. She says it was strange that the door was locked. And then she says she doesn't normally lock her door. Well, that's not full stop. She didn't ever lock her door, just normally didn't lock her door, but at other times she has locked her door. In fact, she then goes on to say it had happened at various times. So Meredith had locked her door at various times. She didn't normally do it, which means she did it sometimes. It had happened at various times. That's her explicitly saying that Meredith had locked her door before, but it wasn't the usual thing. Again, the usual thing is what happens most often, but the opposite happens at other times. So when she tells us that she sometimes locked her door. She sometimes locked her door. She sometimes locked her door. But on this occasion, the fact that Meredith's door was locked, that was strange. That's strange in itself. She continues, and so I remember even knocking on it thinking, oh, if it's locked, then Meredith must be inside. This is, I think, the first time where she's telling us about remembering something, and it's not remembering a thought or a thought process or ideas that were in her head. This is the first time that she's remembering a physical action, which is knocking on it. But even then, she goes into thinking. So it's about knocking and then thinking. So once more, she's letting us in on what she was thinking, what she remembers thinking. And that thinking is, if it's locked, then Meredith must be inside. I don't know why that is the thought process. She doesn't tell us. She says, I mean, why would she lock, not like we were the type of house where you had to worry about people going into each other's rooms. Like, if you close your door, it's fine. Now, maybe Meredith locked her door because she didn't want anyone going into it when she was out. That's as equally valid as, I'm locking the door because I'm asleep and I want some privacy. So why does it jump into her head that if the door's locked, Meredith must be inside? Don't forget, this is when she first went in, thought no one was there. Things just starting to get a little bit question mark for me about the things that Amanda Knox is saying.
And so I remember knocking gently and seeing if she would answer, and then knocking harder and seeing if she would answer, and finally banging on it and being like, Raphael, like, we need to open this door. Like, I don't understand. If she's not here, like, why would she lock it? And like, I just don't understand. Like, maybe what if something happened like there, and you're starting to try to put things together in your mind, like there's blood in that bathroom, and then there's feces in the toilet, and so like, what, like, first of all, I wasn't able to like try to understand how all of those things fit together. And that was even like more disconcerting, because it's like, I do not know how to make sense of this. This is not something that is very clear to me. I don't even know if Meredith is here, but it's weird to me that her door is locked. And so I asked Raphael to try to kick it in. Indeed, I even tried to like see if I could see into her window through the terrace, but of course I couldn't see anything. And he tried to kick it in, but you know, especially when you don't know what's going on, like, you're not quite sure, you're like tentative, and like, he tried twice and it didn't work. And so finally he just called his sister, who's a police officer. She recommended calling the police. We called the police. We left the house because I was nervous. Like, I just didn't know what to think. And I assumed there was a break-in. Apparently the person only went through Philomena's room, but why? And if there was in her room her camera like sitting right there, like her laptop sitting right there, like what did they take? I didn't see anything taken. So I just did not know what to make sense of it. And all I knew is it creeped me out. And so I went outside with Raphael, and thank goodness Raphael was there, because I wouldn't even know who to call. Like, I just didn't. It's not 911 in Italy. It's 113, I think, or 112. Either way, like, I didn't know.
Okay. Once more, she starts off by telling us what she remembers doing. And I remember knocking gently and seeing if she would answer, and then knocking harder and seeing if she would answer, and finally banging on it and being like, Raphael, like, we need to open this door. So I remember knocking gently. So once again, this is the first action, is she remembers knocking gently and seeing if she would answer. Seeing if she would answer. Compare that to the phone calls that we heard earlier, where she said, I tried to make the phone call and the phone didn't answer. She doesn't say that here. She didn't say, I tried to call Meredith to see if she would answer. I tried to call Laura to see if she would answer. No, here it's seeing if she would answer. So really the concept that Meredith is inside the room is very high, and it's not seeing if she's there, because she doesn't really know. It's a locked door. She thinks she's there. It's just seeing if she would answer. It's strange and it's interesting words. And comparing to how she talked about trying to contact people in the phone calls, very different language. And finally, I was banging on it and being like, Raphael, like, we need to open this door. Is that her first thought? Is that really the first thought? Like, banging on the door, that looks like it's been a break-in, door's locked. Is your first thought, you need to open this door? I'm not sure it would be. Just because that's what I would do or how I would think doesn't make Amanda Knox guilty of anything. I'm just very interested in why that was her first thought on banging the door and there being no answer in this house that appeared to be empty when she has not been there for hours and doesn't even know if someone is in that room, doesn't know, thinks but doesn't know. Raphael, like, we need to open that door. I don't understand. If she's not here, like, why would she lock it? The answer to that is so no one could get in her room, so I'm not entirely sure why the fact this door is locked is making Amanda think Meredith is in the room. Is it indeed making Amanda think Meredith is in the room, or does she have some knowledge that Meredith is in that room? Do you notice something else here? I've mentioned past tense earlier, and everything that she has been talking about events in the past has been past tense. But now we're moving into present tense words. I remember knocking gently. Now that's still saying past tense because she's talking about it being remembered. And then knocking harder and seeing if she would answer and banging on it. These are moving into present tense words. We need to open this door is, again, present tense. I don't understand if she's not here, why would she lock it? So we're moving into the present tense in the words here. It goes on, I just don't understand. Maybe what if something's happened, there, and you're starting to try to put things together in your mind, there's blood in that bathroom, and then there's the feces in the toilet. And so, first of all, I wasn't able to, try to understand how all of those things fit together. And that was even, more disconcerting because it's I do not know how to make sense of this. Present tense appears again. I just don't understand. You're starting. There's blood, so there is blood. There's feces, so there is feces. I do not know how to make sense of this. All those things are said in the present tense in that extract there. And also, she's starting not to talk about herself, but she's talking about you. You're starting to put these things together in your mind, not her. She doesn't say that she was doing these things there. She's starting to talk about you. Her narrative, for as chaotic as the timelines have been, her narrative is really strangely changed here. We've got much more use of present tense words, and also she's talking about you and your. Sometimes this is used for dramatic effect. Is that what's going on here? Is she trying to create some dramatic effect around not being able to rouse her housemate in a house that looks like it's been broken into? There's enough drama in that already. Or is this all a little bit constructed and she's trying to use the words, but she doesn't have the right ones to mention? She's trying to put these things together in your mind, there's blood in the bathroom and then there's feces in the toilet. So first of all, I wasn't able to try and understand how all those things fit together. Now she's really focused on the blood in the bathroom and the feces in the toilet. She doesn't mention there, and all those things she's trying to fit together. She doesn't mention the door being unlocked, the window being broken, the room being ransacked at all. She's focused very much on these bodily, dirty excretions, the blood in the bathroom and the feces on the toilet. She says, this is not something that is very clear to me. I don't even know if Meredith is here. But it's weird to me that her door is locked, and so I asked Raphael to try and kick it in. Indeed, I even tried to see if I could see into her window through the terrace. But of course I couldn't see anything, and he tried to kick it in. But especially when you don't know what's going on, you're not quite sure, you're tentative, and he tried twice and it didn't work. And so finally we just called his sister, who's a police officer. So in this extract, we move back from present tense into past tense. This is, present tense, not something that is very clear to me. I don't even know, present tense, if Meredith is here. But it is weird to me that her door is locked. That is all in the present tense. Let me just read it again. Sorry, yes, it is in the present tense. This is not something that is very clear to me. I don't even know if Meredith is here, but it's weird to me that her door is locked. And then it goes to past tense. And so I asked Raphael to try to kick it in. Indeed, I even tried to see if I could see into her window through the terrace, but of course I couldn't see anything. It's all past tense. He tried to kick it in. You're not quite sure, you're tentative, and he tried twice and it didn't work. All past tense. And so finally we just called his sister. All past tense. There is a move there from present tense to past tense. She says, and so we've got and so here. I asked Raphael to try and kick it in. Indeed, I even tried to see if I could see into her window through the terrace, but of course I couldn't see anything, and he tried to kick it in. Now, unless she asked Raphael to kick it in, and then she went and tried to see if she could see into her window. She couldn't, so she came back and said, try to kick the door in. I think, again, we've just got more time chaos here, that she has to say some other things in order to make her current situation make a little bit of sense as she's telling it. So just more time chaos where she's jumping about in the timeline like crazy. It's very, very disorganized, chaotic storytelling here as far as timelines are concerned. Once more, she doesn't talk about herself in this extract here. She's talking about you. But, you know, especially when you don't know what's going on. So not her didn't know what was going on, but it's you that doesn't know what's going on. You're not quite sure. You're like tentative. So she's not talking authentically for herself there. She's using you. Why is that? Is that to put yourself in her space of mind, in her frame of mind, so you can think and see things from her point of view? That is a valid tactic. Or is it that she just doesn't have the authentic language within herself to use the phrase, this is what was going on with me, by using the word I? And so finally, he just called his sister, who's a police officer. So we've got just pointing up again. Is that just saying that other things happened, but the only thing I want you to know, the thing I want you to focus on, is that we called his sister, who's a police officer? She recommended calling the police. We called the police. We left the house because I was nervous. Like, I just didn't know what to think. Once more, we have got Amanda letting us in on her thought process and how confused she was, how she did not really know what was happening that day. And I think if there's one thing that's come across from what we've seen so far, is she really wants us to know how bewildering everything was here. She just didn't know what to think. And then she tells us what she was thinking. I assumed there was a break-in, is what she said. So she moves from I didn't know what to think to I assumed there was a break-in. Apparently the person only went through Philomena's room, but why? And if there was in her room, there was a camera like sitting right there. So we've got this going backwards again in time, where she brings up things. She didn't mention the camera. She saw the camera when she was in Philomena's room. She just said that the window was broken, and she's had to go back several times to fill us in on what she observed in Philomena's room, telling us it had been ruffled up, telling us things were toppled over, a chest of drawers had been pulled out as well. And now, even though she's been assuming there's a break-in, she's giving us nothing had been stolen. There was the camera there, and she carries on like her laptop was sitting right there. So we really do have her jumping again backwards in time to tell us what she observed long before they went to Laura's room, then right through the house into her own room, then Meredith, and they couldn't get to Meredith, but she went outside to see if she could see in Meredith's room, and then they tried to kick the door open, and she goes all the way back to before all of that to tell us what she observed in Philomena's room, like her camera and her laptop were sitting there. Like, what did they take? I didn't see anything taken, and so I just didn't know what to make sense of it, and all I knew was it creeped me out. And again, we've just got this creeped versus scared thing going on. I'm not saying she's lying here. I'm saying she's telling the truth, that she was creeped out there, but she never ever says she was scared and she was frightened. And so storytelling comes back. And so I went outside with Raphael, and thank goodness Raphael was there, because like, I wouldn't even know who to call. Like, I just didn't. It's not 911 in Italy. It's 113, I think, or 112. Either way, like, I didn't know. I'm just going to call it out here that she says, I didn't know who to call, which is a person or maybe an organisation or a group of people. But what she means is she didn't know the number. It's not 911, it's 113 or 112. I'm not saying this makes her a real guilty, horrible person. All I'm saying is there's just a little discrepancy there of she didn't know who to call, but actually what she meant was she didn't know the number to call.
And a couple minutes after we are outside of the house, there's one that comes up, and then shortly afterward there's another cop that comes up, and they're not in uniform, they're wearing regular clothes, and they say that they're there to look for Philomena. Mm-hmm. And I thought, Philomena? Okay, what's wrong with Philomena? And they were like, oh no, we have Philomena's phone. And we have these two phones, and one of them belongs to Philomena. And so I thought, okay, well, Philomena is on her way, because I had called Philomena and asked her to come home, like her room was ransacked. And then I was like, so are you here for the call that we made? And they said, no. Well, okay, I wasn't saying this. Raphael was saying it for me, because that wasn't happening. And so we brought them into the house to show them that there had been a break-in. And we kept telling them, like, it looks like a break-in, but it doesn't look like anything has been stolen. And so we don't know what to make of it. And they kept saying, well, it's not our jurisdiction. Like, well, you called the police, so they'll come. And so we waited for them. And then, but what ended up happening first was Philomena arrived. She had with her boyfriend and two friends who were a couple at the time. And as soon as Philomena arrived, the pressure was kind of off of me because she was, you know, one of the people of the house who actually could speak Italian. Mm-hmm. And so she immediately started in with the police officers, just blah, 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 and like freaking out and going through a room. And then eventually what ended up happening was focus was brought onto Meredith's room again. And especially when we identified the phones that the police had brought as Meredith's. Mm-hmm. And so like Philomena was saying, we have to kick down the door, and I was like, well, we tried to kick down the door, and then so they tried again, and this time it was Philomena's boyfriend and his friend who kicked down the door, and that's when they discovered Meredith's body.
All the old concepts keep on coming from Amanda. She says, and a couple of minutes after we were outside of the house, these two, well, there's one that comes up, and then shortly afterward, there's another cop that comes up. These two, what she just wants to say, there's a cop that comes up, and then, there's two cops that come up, but she has to tell the order that they came up. So one comes up, and then shortly afterward, there's another cop that comes up. Again, she's just splitting it all out so that it makes sense. Just very strange way of telling things. I also think there's a bit of filler that's coming in there. I'll tell you about that in a bit. And they say that they're here to look for Philomena. So they just arrive and say, we're here to look for Philomena. So that means that they expect to find Philomena there. And she thought, what's wrong with Philomena? Why was that where you went with it? Not why do you want Philomena, but what's wrong with Philomena? Interestingly, she says, I thought Philomena. Okay, what's wrong with Philomena? And they answer her thought. She doesn't say she said it out loud. She doesn't say, I said, God, Philomena, what's happened? What's up? She thought, what's wrong with Philomena? But the police answer that thought. Strange storytelling again. These were like, oh no, we have her phone. So they answered, in the telling here, they answered that thought. And it continues. And so I thought, okay, well, Philomena is on her way because I had called Philomena and asked her to come home. Philomena is on her way because I had called Philomena and asked her to come home. Again, this is something that has not been told in this version of events so far. She's called Philomena to ask where she was and was she at home. But now she has to go back in time to talk about calling Philomena and saying the reason that she's on her way home is because I've called Philomena and asked her to come home. Here she talks about her room being ransacked. I asked her to come home like her room was ransacked. So ruffled has gone, just being a little bit sort of ruffled has gone, and actually now she is saying that the room has been ransacked. And then I was like, so are you here for the call that was made? And they said no. Well, okay. I wasn't saying this. Raphael was saying it for me because that wasn't happening. So she seems to want to get to the truth. It's like the thing with the cops of both came. Oh, well, actually one came and then another came. And here she's saying that she's having this conversation and then she thinks, actually, that's not true. I'm going to have to tell the truth here. And Raphael was saying this for me because this wasn't happening. But she keeps having to tell us things that have happened already in order for things to be straightforward and in order for them to make sense. She says, and so we brought them into the house to show them that there had been a break-in. And we kept telling them, like, it looks like a break-in, but it doesn't look like anything has been stolen. And so we don't know what to make of it. Again, this effort to convince us that they did not know what was happening here, what was going on. And they kept saying, well, it's not our jurisdiction. Like, well, you called the police, so they'll come. And so, got a bit of Anso storytelling there, and so we waited for them. And then, but what ended up happening was Philomena arrived, and she had with her her boyfriend and two friends who were a couple at the time. And as soon as Philomena arrived, the pressure was kind of off of me, because she was like, one of the people of the house who could actually speak Italian. What pressure? She has not mentioned any pressure at all that was on her. So what pressure got off her when Philomena arrived? Because she said that Raphael was speaking Italian for her. So that was happening. So what pressure did she find on her? Is it the fact that really she didn't want this responsibility? She wanted someone else who was part of the house to have the responsibility of dealing with the police and so on? Could be, but that's not what she says. She doesn't say there was any pressure on her. She hasn't described any pressure being on her. But now she's saying this pressure has come off because, she was, one of the people in the house who could actually speak Italian. Well, her boyfriend was Italian and he was speaking Italian. So this is just very, very weird. What I do think is here is just a lot of filler. Talking about the police being in plain clothes, about this pressure being off, and about the fact Raphael was talking Italian, and then this other person comes up and they can talk Italian as well. We're getting, as you saw, as you heard, we're getting to the discovery of Meredith's body. That is a traumatic event in this story. No matter what has happened, no matter what the truth of the matter is, finding the dead body of Meredith is a traumatic event. So I do wonder if some of this filler is just talking about things that are slightly more comfortable to talk about, like the fact the police were in plain clothes, the fact that Philomena arrived. Do we really need to know she was there with her boyfriend and two friends who were a couple at the time? Do we really need to know all of that? I think this might be a little bit of nerves about getting to the horrible part of this story, and so she's staying where she's a little bit more comfortable talking about and sort of expanding on that and giving us detail that we don't need to know. It then goes on, and so she immediately started talking with police officers, just blah blah blah, and like freaking out and going through her room. And then she says, and then eventually what ended up happening was focus was brought onto Meredith's room again. Now the words eventually and ended up suggest to me that she is signalling here that other things happened, but she doesn't want to talk about them for some reason. Maybe they're not important. Maybe she realizes she's gone on very long. Maybe there are things that she wants to hide about how the focus got on Meredith's room again. But eventually and ended up says that there are things here that I am not mentioning. And so she goes on and says, eventually, what ended up happening was focus was brought on Meredith's room again, and especially when we identified the phones that the police had brought as Meredith's. And I spot a little bit of tension coming in here, which is entirely natural. I think again here we have lots of filler going on about identifying the phones. The phone that was brought was Meredith. It can't just say because it was Meredith's phone. So I spot lots of filler going on here again as she gets towards the discovery of the body. And the other thing I would have to say is that in the telling of this, both when she and Raphael were attempting to break open the door and when this does happen, is in her telling, you can really feel when she is outside Meredith's room. It is much clearer, much more in focus than almost anything else Amanda Knox talks about.
There was, Philomena immediately started screaming, just screaming. I did not see into the room. I was away, so I didn't really, all I heard from her was blood and a foot. So she kept saying the words for blood and foot, and screaming, and was hysterical. And immediately the police pushed us out of the, Raphael grabbed me and shuffled me out, but we were told we have to leave now.
What'd you get there? We'll look at that when I do part 2 of this Amanda Knox interview. So I'm not going to come to any direct conclusions so far because this is only part 1. There is another 10 minutes of her talking about that day to get through before I'm going to come to any conclusions. But what have I got so far? What notes have I made so far? Look, there's that chaotic storytelling. It's very, very disorganized. She keeps having to go back and pull things from back in the timeline into the timeline at the point in the timeline where she is just now in order for it all to make sense. Why is that happening? the cleanliness theme or the uncleanliness theme as well comes through very, very strongly. She is omitting a lot. We can see that in the fact that she has to go back and tell us things that happened, but we can also see words like ended up and eventually. The fact she didn't mention that shower story as well. I think she is admitting a lot there. It's inconsistent. Is it normal? Is it weird? Is it really strange that her door was locked, or is it quite, usual or expected that her door could be locked? There are some real inconsistencies in the telling there. Meredith feels like a low priority to me, to Amanda. She should be a higher priority now because of what happened, but at the time Meredith might not have been the closest two people in that house. They might have even disliked each other or not got on very well. That's absolutely fine, but Meredith does feel like a low priority to Amanda there. What really got me, what really struck me, was that change in tone outside Meredith's room where it went to present tense and she was talking about what you are doing rather than what I am doing. That was a real shift, real big shift in her telling. So that really got me interested and curious as to what is going on around there. All those things, there are lots of red flags in them. They're all potential markers of deception. However, I don't feel like she's selling me a story. She's not really being persuasive or convincing. I'm not seeing signs of manipulative language from her either in very much of what she's saying, apart from the use of that word immediately when she's back at Raphael's and things start getting immediate and there's a bit of a change. When she gets to Raphael's, that's when all the action starts happening a hell of a lot faster. And I feel like she's trying to persuade us that these things happened immediately. I'm not quite sure I buy them, but let me just go back there. I don't get the impression that she is selling me a story, and I don't feel like she is trying to be persuasive or convincing. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of manipulative language there as well. Like, you got to believe me, or honestly, there's just none of that. What you need to understand is there's really none of that going on. And also, did she find it normal or did she find it weird? And why does she keep trying to tell us that she found this weird? That worries me. We will look at that. We will come to some conclusions when we do part 2 of the Amanda Knox interview. So what are your thoughts? Do let me know on social media if you can. If you go to neveratruerword.com, then you'll find all the website details. You'll find all the details of the socials. But you can also leave a channel here. You can leave a comment here on this platform if you can, or do get in touch in the socials. Also at neveratruerword.com, you will find a load more videos analysing the words that people choose to use and looking to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Sign up for the monthly newsletter. Check out all the back catalogue of podcasts as well. That's neveratruerword.com, and we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.